On this episode of Tips on the Top Floor, I'll take a closer look at what has changed in photography since I started making this podcast 13 years ago, from cameras to screens to editing to storage technology. This episode is brought to you by Format.com. Format makes it easy for you to build your fully customizable portfolio website without a single line of code. They focus on photographers like you. Simply sell your photography, send photos to your clients for proofing, and update your gallery straight from Lightroom. Go to format.com/topfloor to start your free 30-day trial. That's format.com/topfloor. This is Tips from the Top Floor, episode 824, the 26th of April, 2018.
Tips from the top floor, tips from the top, alright, from the top floor.
Hey, hello and welcome. This is Chris Marquardt. You're listening to Tips from the Top Floor, the longest running photography podcast on the planet. And it's episode 820. It's a special episode because it's the 13-year anniversary of Tips from the Top Floor. Yes, it is. 13 years still. Well, officially last week, but still this week. And I want to continue that whole topic a little bit by looking into what has changed in the last 13 years that I've been doing this podcast. Mostly on the technology side, but also in a few other areas. And there has been a lot of change. And let's hold the thought. Let me get back to that in a second. There's one more topic that I want to talk about first, which is the acquisition of Flickr, which just happened a couple of days ago before I record this, and it's worth having a quick look at that. SmugMug bought Flickr. Now, SmugMug, most of you will know, is a photo hosting platform. They have galleries, they have shops, they have client workflows, they have labs connected so you can allow people to order products, prints and stuff, full resolution storage unlimited. And it's a paid service, starts at $3.99 a month and has been around for, well, since 2002. It's a family company. It's not a venture capital backed thing, no investors there. It's the father and son thing. Chris and Don MacAskill started SmugMug in 2002, and they started with a paid service. There's no free tier, and they've been around for a long time. There's no freemium, and SmugMug, this is not well known here in Germany, but of course I've had a lot of contact it, and they bought Flickr. Now Flickr, again, another platform, photo sharing platform, photo hosting platform. They began in 2004 in Canada by a company called Ludicorp, which again was a family business, husband and wife team, Stuart Butterfield and Katerina Fake. And they started that in 2004, and it was this beautiful, wonderful community. And then in 2005, they were acquired by Yahoo. And that's where most of you will probably know the Flickr from, being a Yahoo thing, and it has been with Yahoo forever, pretty much, since 2005. In 2008, the two founders, the husband and wife team, left Yahoo. And since then, Flickr has been, tugging along, but there haven't been that massive changes. The changes have been incremental, but it was okay. It was working well. And then in 2017, last year, Verizon bought Yahoo and Flickr, which shocked most people who are on Flickr because, hey, Verizon is a telecom. They are not a photo thing. They're not into the photography thing for sure. So everyone was afraid what's going to happen to Flickr. 2017, there was a rebranding. They kind of put out their digital media subsidiary called Oath. But still Verizon though, and that didn't really change anything, at least from my point of view, didn't. But I stuck with Flickr. I'm still a pro customer. I still pay to be on Flickr without ads and with unlimited storage and stuff. And I was always hoping for some positive change for Flickr. And honestly, I think SmugMug buying Flickr is a good thing. It's a good thing. They bought it just now, and I've been using Flickr for a long time. We've used Flickr for other podcasts. Happy Shooting has a Flickr group. The Tech Guy group, 13,000 members. 6,000 photos. Tips from Top Floor is on Flickr. So it's now in the hand of a company that is still a family-run business, and they love photography. As far as I can tell, they love photography. So I think they're in good hands. The two founders tweeted about the Flickr acquisition, both in a positive way, which I completely liked. They both, were happy about that, and that was, as I said, a good thing. And I think, especially as they left the business in 2008. That's a good sign. If they are happy, then it's possibly a good thing that's going to happen. They said they won't change anything for now, but who knows how they're going to merge those two, if they're going to merge those two. But for now, I think they have added a lot of people, a big community, to what they do with SmugMug, and I have a good feeling. I think Flickr is in good hands now. Okay, well, that was kind of part of the history of the last 13 years, but let's get back into the tech. 13 years, what have they done? For example, with cameras. With my personal camera history, when I started with my first DSLR, that was the 300D by Canon, the Digital Rebel, which I guess a lot of you had back then. It was the first DSLR that was affordable, sub 1,000 euros here. That was the price point that made it feel okay to jump for that from my little 2 megapixel point and shoot camera. And that was the 300D was, what an upgrade. What an amazing upgrade. 300D, 6 megapixels, a huge sensor, APS-C, huge compared to all the sensors I had before. Just, possibilities. A step back into SLR territory, which is where I came from originally. And that served me well for a while. I remember the controversy about its body being this silvery polycarbonate plastic, this like I don't know, like a motorcycle helmet kind of thing. this metallic look, which a lot of people, a lot of air quotes pros were totally against. It was not black, and that meant it wasn't professional, and so on. I learned a lot on that camera, and trust me, I know professionals who use that camera for professional work, and it was plenty good. It was much better than anything else in that price range at that time. And how did that continue? And the 20D, that was the next one for me. Then the 5D, the first full frame, which was exciting. Again, coming from a 35mm SLR, a film SLR, that was the format I was used to, and that was going back there. It was a very, very cool camera. I loved my 5D. And then came the 5D Mark II, which was a little revolution in itself. And by the way, this is not a Canon ad. I know all the others did amazing stuff back then, but of course I can only look at this from the perspective of the cameras that I had and that I have a bit of a connection with. The 5D Mark II was the camera that pretty much, I think that's one of the longest times, apart from my old film cameras, that's probably the longest time I've used the DSLR. I think I used it for 8 or 9 years. And it revolutionized the video world with full frame video. And full frame video, 35mm, that was video that finally had the chance to look like cinema, like proper film, at least size-wise. And that, I think Canon, as far as I know, they had been surprised that that feature took off so long, and there was this long controversy about about firmware upgrades and allowing frame rate changes and more manual control. And I think it took them many months. Well, first to admit that it wasn't sufficient, and then to come up with a firmware that would enable some more manual control on the video. But still, the 5D Mark II was that one camera that changed. I think it changed a lot. And then, well, now the tools are, the cameras are tools now for me. The 5D Mark IV doesn't have anything major above the Mark II, other than more megapixels and a better low light performance. But in general, it's just an incremental upgrade for me. But it's definitely a workhorse, and I'm using it. And of course, they have my favorite lenses, which are the tilt shift lenses. So one of the reasons I'm still with that brand, because I don't really have that choice with other brands. And don't start me on adapters and things. They are, from my opinion and what I've seen and tried out, nowhere near a native tilt shift lens on a camera. So that's my camera history. And the next thing would be looking for, I'd probably say, key years, 2005 to 2018, 13 years. I was looking at what years were kind of really important in the development since, and I guess one that comes to mind right at the top is the year 2009. 2009 was just an important year because, well, let me pick out two reasons why I think it was a very important year for me, and two things stick out in that context, or in the context of this show at least. And the first is the first Himalayan trek with John Miller, which I've told the story often enough. I met John through podcasting, and he was a documentary filmer. He filmed a documentary on a Mount Everest climb with a Colorado climber, and I found his show and I watched all the episodes that he had released by that time, and I was so hooked because that was such a wonderful format. And I sent him an email, and he sent an email back telling me that he enjoyed what I was doing, and that was the beginning of a good friendship. And then 2009. Well, that happened earlier. That happened in 2006. But then 2007, he asked me, do you want to hold a photo workshop at Mount Everest Base Camp? Which I still remember that mail vividly. And the answer I sent him back was just like 10, 15 minutes later, just going, yeah, sure, let's do this. And it changed my life in many, many respects. Health-wise, and because I stopped smoking, and I started to be more cautious with my health, and then 2 years later, 2009, I ended up hiking to Mount Everest Base Camp, and I've done it several times since. And the second reason 2009 is important for me is because that's the year I went back to film photography, to analog photography, at least partially. And that was such an amazing journey, such an important journey. Not just because it was a back to the roots thing for me, it's mostly because it made me a better photographer throughout the digital stuff. And again, I've talked about this here on the show plenty of times. The move into film photography, back into film photography, brought back, well, a more of the thoughts of what is really important in photography, and what are the things that, while seeming to help you, are actually in your way of being creative. And film photography kind of sorts that out for you. It kind of takes that and gives you that framework within which you can be really creative. And it adds some things to photography that you can then take over and take into digital photography. And it has made me a better photographer. Definitely has. Before I get back into digital, let me look into the analog side of things, because it has done something for me that I would have never thought possible. And first, of course, film photography making me a better photographer, but it has also helped me become a book author, which, yeah, it's still one of these things that's so unbelievable, because, I'm not that structured to write a book. You need to be very structured if you write a book. And I never thought I could do this because, I was doing blog entries, I was doing these podcasts, but try to find a structure in my podcasts. It's kind of hard. So the way Monica, my better half, and I, how we got to write the Film Photography Handbook, our first book, was that when we got back into film photography, we did a deep dive into, well, first of all, refreshing what we already knew, relearning, learning new things, and we kind of turned that into workshops here in Germany. And then the German publisher D. found us and they asked us. So that's kind of the best possible place you can be in. They asked us, would you like to write a book on that? And they knew that we were okay writing when they saw our blogs and other stuff that we've written. But again, it's this daunting thing. You say, especially for me, not being that structured. So that worked. It was an experience. It was not always painless. It was some of the areas were quite tough to get through, but I'm so glad I did it, and Monica as well. So that was first written in German and then translated, which was another wow moment. Now the book is in English and in German, Absolut Analog in German, and the Film Photography Handbook in English. It's now going into its second print run in Germany. The first print is almost sold. We're updating it right now, kind of a second edition, with some added information. I don't know if that will make it into the English translation or not, but we'll see. And then this turned into a second book, which I finished here in Germany, the wide angle book. Been going on and on about this here in the show. The translation is now done. There are some last fixes. The layout is almost finished. So it's just a matter of time for this to come out. I think the official date on Amazon is still August, and you can still pre-order it, and that'll tell the publisher that they made the right decision in translating that. And then there's a third book, which I'm working on right now. Okay, I can't tell you too much about it other than it's a cooperation with another author. And it's going to be a different one again. So much for the book. So the film photography is the one thing that started that. Without going into film photography, I wouldn't be writing my third book now. So that is really, really exciting. But back to phototech. Phototech. What else has changed? Well, we looked at cameras. Let's look at lenses. Lenses, at least from my point of view, haven't changed that much. I mean, the optical principles are still intact, right? Physics and science still do their thing. So, but a few things have been added to lenses. I've seen some additional, coatings, nano coatings that better remove reflections in more wavelengths. So I think that was an interesting change, even though it's just adding some technical quality to the lenses. It doesn't help you be a better photographer. And another thing that has emerged is computational photography, which a lot of cameras have now built in. And the simple computational photography aspects might be lens corrections, vignetting corrections in camera, geometry corrections, but it's getting to a different level now. You see this in smartphones where photos are internally in the smartphone are treated in ways that they treat the sky differently from the foreground, from skin tones, from whatever. So the picture is pretty much analyzed and treated in a way that is hard to do in other cameras. At least that not many do that right now, but it's getting more and more and more, and it'll change the landscape in general. The future of photography is going to be amazing in ways that we probably can't even understand at this point. So lenses, also lots of Kickstarters with a ton of quote retro lenses, which I'm still kind of I tend to make fun of these because yeah, why not get the original? There's so much stuff on the used market, and you can probably get them for much less than what you pay for the new retro lenses, and they work some probably even better. Anyway, photo editing, what has changed? Well, face recognition is now almost everywhere, and then that hasn't really led to any widespread use in my own photography, not in a meaningful way. Content recognition, the platforms are doing this now, but also your smartphone is doing this now. There's more automated metadata in your photos. I mean, if you search for cat on your iPhone in the Photos app, it'll find cats, even those that you did not tag as cats. If you do a little bit of facial, you can name faces. If you have a portrait of someone, I think you have to swipe up or something, and then you can tell the phone the name of that person, and then it'll try to match it with other persons. So facial recognition is in there. It's just a metadata thing that helps you organize things better, find things easier. And I can now go back to sunsets by just typing in sunset, and that is kind of cool. Yeah, this will move into very interesting fields in the future, but that's a good start, I think. So for me, it has been helpful several times, and it happens without you redoing anything. It just happens automatically. Another thing that changed photo editing, that could have changed photo editing, is the GPS chip that is now in many cameras. The question is, has it really? I don't think it has, at least not at this point. I mean, have you? There might be some applications, but has it led to widespread use of maps for photography? No, not really at this point. And it might have to do with privacy concerns, like I don't want to give people the location of all my photos. But in general, it hasn't caught on as much as I thought it would. So I think I even made a prediction at one point that we'll be all map-based photographers, and we'll be, and there are applications for that, like map-based scouting for locations and things. But it hasn't proven as useful to me as I thought it would. Okay, let's take a quick break, and after that we'll look into computers and Lightroom and displays and another few things. This episode is brought to you by WeTransfer, which is a service that I personally use all the time to share big files around the world for free. I've just done that again with my publisher. We're sending back and forth proofreading copies of the book. WeTransfer is all about making the creative process easier for everyone. There's no sign up, no offer codes, no password to forget. Just upload, send, and get back to making what you make. Couldn't be easier. 40 million people use WeTransfer to send and receive files every month, and since day one, they have devoted 30% of their ad space to showcasing creative people from around the world, from musicians to illustrators to photographers to podcasters like me. So in that spirit, let me skip the rest of this short ad and get on with it. This episode is also supported by Udemy, the largest marketplace for online learning. Whether you want to learn something new or just sharpen your skills, Udemy has an extensive library of over 65,000 courses taught by expert instructors. Ever find yourself thinking, I wish I could do that? With Udemy, you can. From web development to digital marketing to Japanese cooking courses, Udemy has something for everyone. While other online learning companies charge hundreds of dollars per class, Udemy courses start at just $11.99. Plus, each course comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee for risk-free learning. Every day, students around the world choose Udemy to discover new passions, expand their skills, and even change careers. Improve your life through learning. Download the Udemy app to learn anytime, anywhere, or visit www.ude.my/topfloor today. That's www.ude.my/topfloor. Again, ude.me/topfloor. And I thank them for the support. All right, back to the developments in the last 13 years. Lightroom. Lightroom goes back to 2007. And even though a lot of people now are trying to find alternatives, stuff to replace Lightroom with for various reasons, including that it's not as fast as it used to be, it has been my photo hub for 11 years now. That's a long time. It's a long time for one app to be used for something, and it has, in general, done a very good job at that. They had incremental changes, new features here and there, updates in the processing engine, and being able to switch between them, which is, I think, a pretty cool way to preserve your old edits. They can introduce new color models, and they can swap out, or they can give you the option to upgrade, but you don't have to, so your old edits will stay intact. And that is, it has really worked well for the last 11 years. And there were bumps, there were a few bumps here and there, especially when the 5K iMac came out and the screens went bigger and the pictures went bigger because the cameras then went up from 20 to 30 megapixels or more. And that means, in general, means that the computer has to push around a lot more data to the screen in between the memory and the storage and so on. It's not simple, definitely not simple. And from all I've seen, the other ones aren't that much faster, at least not with if they have the functionality, the database-like functionality of Lightroom. And Lightroom has done a pretty good job in keeping some consistency over the years, at least. Which I appreciate, and which kind of makes it almost indispensable for me. Also because I spent a lot of time learning it. You know, I have to go back to that investment thing. You put an investment in being able to be fast on a software. It takes time to learn new keyboard shortcuts, the ways you do it, workflows, and so on. I'm still so much faster, even though Lightroom sometimes can be a bit sluggish. I'm still so much faster than on any other software where I don't know how things work, where I don't know the buttons, where I don't know how to operate it. A very controversial change, of course, is Lightroom's cloud model, and Adobe has, it's just something that irks me personally. Because I'm from the generation where you don't rent stuff usually. Well, at least I don't rent too much. My music, I have a Apple Music subscription, but I don't use it as much as I thought, because I have some music that I really love, and there's a lot of music, but I still have that feeling of wanting to own stuff. I know I'm probably an old fart in the eyes of a lot of you, but the whole streaming subscription thing isn't as cool to me as it might be to some others. And the same is true for software. I love having my software, owning my software, paying for updates, no problem, but deciding when I get an update, how I get an update, and with a cloud subscription, you're pretty much renting the software. And yeah, that gives me the feeling that, I mean, even though they will have a hard time pulling the plug, it gives me the feeling that they have the ability to pull the plug, and it gives me less control. And with my livelihood, with my entire photo career being inside Lightroom, that is kind of a difficult thing. I don't mind paying the $120 a year. That's not the problem. The problem is that, and I know it's not as bad, because they have stuff in Lightroom that if you don't pay the license, you can still export your photos unlimited time. So, but still, I'm still a Lightroom user, 11 years, and that's 11 years of metadata in the catalog, which is a lot. And it now enables me to write the books, for example, by being able to simply find stuff. It's easy to find photos for me because I know how to search them. I know what the metadata is, and that is worth a lot for me. It is. So I'm sticking with Lightroom for now. I'm keenly watching what others will do. First and foremost, Affinity or Serif with whatever they are going to do with their Lightroom killer. They didn't call it that. I call it that, and it's more in a tongue-in-cheek way. We haven't seen anything yet. We know they're writing a digital asset management system at this point, but no idea how this is going to turn out. So I'm hoping it will be good, because definitely Lightroom needs competition. Even though I probably won't switch right away, but Lightroom needs competition. Adobe needs competition. They don't have enough competition. Very clear to me. Computers, how have they changed in the last 13 years? Well, obviously have become faster. That speed has, and more memory. The iMac I'm sitting in front of now has 32 gigabytes of RAM. That is, 13 years ago, that was completely unthinkable. Those faster, bigger, more memory computers doesn't mean they're faster, though, in practice. And we see this in Lightroom, right? A lot of that performance has been eaten up by the cameras becoming bigger, the photos becoming bigger, the memory requirements, the computing requirements, the processing requirements have become bigger. More features in software adds new requirements. Some might say it's also more sloppy programming. I'm not pointing fingers here, but I'm sure we've all seen some slowdowns in some of our software. But that is an interesting thing. Also, laptops or mobile devices, let's call them that, are now, I think they've surpassed desktops a long time ago. And when I started 13 years ago, that was still desktop. And I'm still a desktop guy. I kind of need that workstation that is stationary, that is a place I go to do stuff. And but laptops are now kind of the norm, and they have become much faster and much better. Battery times, hey, in 2005, you had to be lucky if a laptop battery kept the thing running for 2 hours under light load. And now, under normal use, the battery holds up, 8, 9, 10 hours. Some laptops. And heavy photo editing, I can do that for 3 to 4 hours straight, no problem at all. So I sit in the back of a Jeep on a safari, and on the way back to the camp, I do my photos, and it just works. And it's all incremental, though. In the time, while it changes, you don't really notice it. But if you look back over a time frame, you go, wow, things have really changed there. Another revolution, and sorry again for being an Apple fanboy, but the MacBook Air is one of those. Second model, got mine in 2012, the 11-inch version. It's light, it's fast enough for photo editing on the go, even video editing on the go. It's not super fast, but it's fast enough. And it's, again, light and tiny. Can take it anywhere. Almost doesn't weigh anything, at least compared to all the other laptops that I have had before. It's so convenient. SSD, so no spinning disk anymore. And when they started taking the 11-inch out of their lineup, it was so convenient to me, the 11-inch, that I got the 2015 model, one of the last ones they sold, and I still use that today. And I know it's not a high-res monitor, it doesn't have Retina, but it covers my needs as a photographer on the road, and it enables my workflow, and that's why that thing is still cool. The new MacBook, the tiny one, it does have Retina, but doesn't have that much more than the 11-inch, and so I'm sticking with that for at least another year and see where this takes me. But yeah, I'm still in love with that little computer. Displays have changed. Wow, dramatically. When I started, I was doing all this on a Windows PC. I had a 17-inch display. And then later, I think I upgraded that to a 19-inch display, and then I added a second 19-inch display. So I had two 19-inch displays next to each other. And now I'm sitting in front of a 5K iMac, 5,000 pixels wide display. Back in the Windows times, I used to profile my PC screens regularly with a little spider thing that you make an ICC profile with. And I kind of touch that up every other month to get the color accuracy. And yeah, Apple fanboy, I know. I don't do that anymore. At least not too much. What I'm sure some of you, again, will roll their eyes now. I haven't had to profile my 5K iMac screen once yet. I did some measurements in the beginning, and it was spot on, and it hasn't really changed. That display is gorgeous, and it's not even the latest generation. It doesn't support the P3 color space yet, but it's better than any display I've had before. So, and it's definitely good enough for photography, which the other ones were as well. The whole profiling thing works, and it helps you be a bit more sure in what you do when you edit a photo, as opposed to doing kind of a blind editing session, because you don't know if your greens are right and your reds are right, and all you see on the screen is a non-corrected version. So profiling is definitely a good thing, but with this screen I just haven't noticed. I haven't noticed a need. And by the way, the P3, the color space thing, is another change that I found interesting. P3 or DCI P3 has still doesn't fully cover Adobe RGB. It lacks a bit in the cyan and green tones, but compared to Adobe RGB. But from my point of view, it's still it's definitely a good improvement over sRGB, which used to be the norm. It still is on the web. I would still typically post all my JPEGs online as an sRGB photo. It's a kind of lowest common denominator. So it gives me the best, yeah, the most trust in that people are going to see what I see. Even though you can't really, it's definitely going to look different on different screens, but it's increasing the chances that other people see the same as I do. So my next screen will definitely have that. And yes, I know, don't write. If I were regularly doing pre-press work, I would probably use something with an even wider color gamut, more closer to Adobe RGB. But for my everyday and mostly digital focused workflow, what I'm using here is just fine. More than just fine. It hasn't hurt my photography in any way so far. And it's more than most photographers use, also most professional photographers. What else is there? Oh, a quick analog detour again. And that's about digitizing photos and documents, which was, interestingly enough, never in the realm of photography. You could, for the longest time, get higher quality from actual scanners than cameras. So the scanning thing on a scanner used to be the norm. And for documents, I've here next to me, I have a Fujitsu SnapScan, which is a fast document scanner that I used to digitize my invoices and stuff. I don't use that anymore. I haven't used that in over a year. Because now, or maybe 2 years, it's quite dusty actually, because that has already been replaced by cameras now, smartphone camera, and some software on my iPhone that detects the document, crops it out for me, straightens it. So even if I shoot it from an angle, I get a straight scanned document. Does OCR, saves it as a PDF, which, yeah. If there's one thing I love Adobe for, it's PDF, because it really it's an international document format. It's not a format for editing, not at all, but it is definitely for these kind of things. It's a wonderful format. It seems to work quite well, even though there were problems as well. But yeah, I know. I don't think we have anything better at this point. At least nothing that's as much in use as PDF. So yeah, the smartphone cameras have taken that document scanning over. So there's your cameras in the last 13 years. That's a big change for me. Sooner or later I'll ditch my SnapScan because I don't have any proper use for it anymore. What when it comes to scanning negatives, a DSLR and a macro lens and a $30 light table gives me more megapixels than my scanner, at least for 35 millimeter format that I scan on a flatbed scanner. It's, yeah, times have changed. Cameras have become better and they're taking over. There's a consolidation going on there. By the way, I've received the talking about that scanning using a camera in the last episode, I think, has triggered a lot of people of you in a positive way. I've received a lot of questions and several voicemails, so I'll dedicate one of the next episodes to that topic, and we'll look a bit deeper into how to do that. What else has changed? File sizes. Oh, yes. If I look back at my Canon Digital Rebel, the 300D, a RAW file was somewhere between 5 and 7 megabytes, which, the 6 megapixels again. Now the 5D Mark IV is a 30 megapixel camera. That's 5 times the resolution. And files are around 30 to 50 megabytes, which kind of was expected, looking at the increased pixel amount. But of course, you end up having to upgrade stuff around it. More disks, especially when you have several backups. Processing takes longer because loading takes longer. So there's definitely some disadvantage. Canon now introduced the CR3 format, which I think has some lossless compression built in, more than the CR2 format. So we'll see where this goes. Storage in general, storage technology, well, has changed and hasn't changed. Compact flash, was the norm back 13 years ago for digital cameras. I still have that. I still have a compact flash slot on my 5D Mark IV, and I still have compact flash cards. In addition to SD cards, SD is now virtually everywhere, in every camera. It's cheaper to make. Controller is in the camera, not on the card. But the compact flash is kind of morphing into, especially for video people, into see fast, which I don't have any real world experience with it. So, but it's a faster format for higher bandwidth throughput, especially in applications like videography. Raw video takes up a lot of storage bandwidth. Prices have changed dramatically in the 13 years. I remember having to think really hard to get that first 4 gigabyte card back in 2005 or 6. I think 5. I think I have a 128 gigabyte SD card in my camera now, and a 64 gigabyte compact flash card. So, and I think the prices were comparable to that 4 gigabyte card back then. So yeah, times have changed a lot. Smartphones, well, 2005, there were no smartphones, at least none that we would call smartphones these days. The iPhone came in 2007, and that changed everything and pretty much killed the compact camera market. Who would have thought that? The camera in the first iPhone? Did the first iPhone have a camera? I didn't have the first iPhone. I got on the bandwagon with the 3GS, and that had a camera, and it was crappy. It was horrible, and everyone was laughing at it. And then the cameras have slowly become better and better in all smartphones. Android as well. Windows Phone. What was the other one? BlackBerry. So things have changed dramatically. Compact cameras, they don't sell them anymore. Well, they do, but no one really buys them anymore. Sales are down so much. Another thing in these 13 years that no one would have predicted is the resurgence of film photography. Again, I have to come back to film. Film and paper-based stuff is Fuji's number one cash cow. Has been for 3 years now. They make most money with Instax and other print, paper, and stuff-based analog stuff that you can touch, which is cool. I like that. After the steady decline, I think we're in a phase where, it's not quite going the way of vinyl. I think it's more important because photographers rediscover it and they learn to use it and make it part of their craft and learn from it. I think the learning aspect is huge, and the satisfaction aspect is huge. If you shoot a roll of film and hold your photos back in your hand, it's gonna be so much more satisfying than having photos stored somewhere in the cloud, out of your reach, well, physical reach. Just a different thing. And then one big finding, to bring this to an end, one big finding from those 13 years is that things are happening slowly. Things are happening really slowly, piece by piece. I can see this especially in laptop batteries, for example. The technology is getting incrementally better. And if you don't really watch it for a couple of years and then look back, you go, whoa, what has changed here? There was some dramatic change. And we see this over and over in different areas. There are much fewer real big revolutions that change everything overnight than I would have expected. But then everything kind of happening more gradual. And all of a sudden, you don't realize that all that change has happened. You're inside a revolution. It just took 13 years. All right, that was it for this episode of Tips from the Top Floor. Thanks again, everyone, for your support. If you want to help keep Tips from the Top Floor going, I'd appreciate if you had a look at tfttf.com/support. Thank you so much. And of course, thanks to Format, WeTransfer, and Udemy for helping make this episode possible. Hey, let me know if there were any changes in the last 13 years that you found amazing. I'm pretty sure I didn't cover everything here on the show. Send me a voicemail. You know I love getting your questions and your feedback and your tips and anecdotes. Simply record on your smartphone. Send to voice@tfttf.com. That's voice@tfttf.com. Music for the show by Jeff Smith, sound partner Hans-Peter Kagerud, publishing and Slack challenges by Release Pixie, Matt Revsitar Armstead, and Slack invitations by Chief Invitation Officer, CIO Russ. My name is Chris Marquardt. Go out and take amazing photos, be nice to each other, and of course, happy shooting.